Dolton, Illinois isn't usually the kind of place that makes national news. It's a small, predominantly black town in the south suburbs of Chicago. The kind of community where people know each other's families, neighbors share Sunday dinners, and politics, though messy at times, rarely escape the local headlines. But starting in 2021, Dolton became something else entirely. A front-row case study in power, betrayal, collapse, and an unlikely comeback that no one quite saw coming. Let's rewind to May 2021. History was made that spring. Tiffany Henyard was elected mayor, the first young black woman to ever hold that office in Dolton. Her campaign had all the hallmarks of transformation. She talked about empowerment, about flipping the script, about being the changemaker people had been waiting decades for. The village believed her. They packed the polls, they rallied behind her vision, and they trusted her with their vote. For a while, it looked like Dolton had found its star. Henyard entered office like a force. She promised reform, transparency, and new energy. But the same charisma that won her applause became the same stage for controversy. Instead of steady governance, Dolton got theatrics. Instead of progress, the headlines turned into allegations. It didn't take long for the cracks to show. Claims began surfacing that Henyard was treating the village budget like her own personal Amazon Prime account. Hair bundles, luxury candles, high-end sandals. Even cookworthies were the receipts floating around while residents struggled with potholes, failing services, and unpaid bills. As Dolton faced real problems, its mayor seemed more interested in personal perks. And when people called her out, she didn't handle it with calm leadership. She went on the offensive. In public meetings, often televised or recorded, Henyard clapped back at critics, many of them black residents, who had once supported her. "Y'all should be ashamed," she barked at one group. "Y'all black, and you're attacking a black woman that's empowered." But identity politics couldn't cover the smoke. Yelling didn't silence the criticism. It only amplified it. The pressure built. Investigations mounted. Residents grew louder. What started as murmurs of discontent swelled into a full-blown chorus of enough. Dolton wasn't just restless, it was ready to revolt. And then the shift came. After months of bitter meetings, backroom battles, and a community demanding change, Dolton swore in a new mayor, Jason House. If you think this was some quiet, polite transition, think again. City Hall was packed wall to wall. The streets outside overflowed. The air was electric. And when Jason House placed his hand on the Bible and swore to lead with honesty and integrity, the room erupted. Applause, cheers, tears. It felt less like a municipal ceremony and more like a liberation moment. One person shouted, "We just watched our little village make national history." And they weren't wrong. Dolton's chaos had become a national case study, not just in mismanagement, but in the resilience of a community that refused to accept less. The people demanded better, and they got it. Under Jason House, the mission is simple but enormous. Restore trust. Clean up the financial mess and rebuild the reputation Dolton lost. Judging by the energy in the room that day, residents are more than ready for the reboot. Meanwhile, Tiffany Henyard has pivoted to Facebook. No explanations, no accountability. Just selfies, motivational quotes, and the kind of tone-deaf messaging that suggests she believes nothing really happened. The same woman who once drew a taxpayer-funded salary of over $347,000 a year more than the governor of Illinois now earns nothing. No position, no perks, no power. And according to those close to her, she didn't save much either. That's the thing about power. If you chase it for the wrong reasons, it disappears fast. And when it's gone, if you didn't lead with integrity, there's nothing left to stand on. No team, no loyalty, no legacy, just silence. But Dolton's story isn't only Tiffany's downfall. It's also a reminder of what real leadership looks like. While Henyard was busy chasing the spotlight, others were doing the actual work behind the curtain. People like Edward Steve and Jason House, they weren't obsessed with cameras or clout. They weren't trying to go viral. They showed up for the community quietly, consistently, and without fanfare. Here's the twist. Jason House didn't even want to be mayor at first. 4 years ago, he had the chance and walked away. Why? Because he didn't need a title to serve. He didn't need credit to care. He showed up anyway. No microphones, no staged photo shoots, just steady work. And when Dolton finally exploded under the weight of scandal, House stepped forward. "Enough," he said, and the people followed. Dolton doesn't just owe him applause. They owe him thanks. Because real leadership doesn't always show up in designer heels and a media entourage. Sometimes it comes in work boots, ready to roll up sleeves and get it done. Of course, some will still spin excuses. They'll say Henyard's downfall was just about not wanting a black woman in power. That argument misses the point. Representation matters. Being black and a woman in leadership is powerful. It inspires. It breaks barriers. But it's not a free pass. Identity can open doors, but it's character that keeps you in the room. Leadership is about discipline, delivery, and respect for the community that trusted you. That's the reality Henyard never grasped. The people who vote for you still expect results. And in communities like Dolton, places rich with black pride and legacy, representation is a badge, not a burden. But it only works if leaders honor the mission, not their own egos. Too often, leaders get elected and chase influence instead of service. They forget why they're there. And every time that happens, the community pays the price. Dolton is just one example. The pattern stretches from small towns to big cities. When leaders treat power like a hustle, neighborhoods suffer. Leadership isn't a hustle. It's a calling. When someone hands you power, you don't flex. You serve. If you don't, you end up like Tiffany Henyard. Out of office, out of money, out of respect. Titles gone, legacy dust. And speaking of dust, let's talk about Amel Woods. Yes. That Amel, the married man who was allegedly caught up in Tiffany's personal fairy tale while the press was still glowing. The checks were still fat and the Instagram pictures still sparkling. Back then, it looked glamorous. Trips, perks, luxury. It was the ride of a lifetime. But now, the ride's over. The spotlight's gone. And let's be real, Amal's nowhere to be found. You think he's sticking around for quiet nights, dollar store dinners, and awkward side-eye? Not a chance. The man's sneakers are already laced. That's the truth about power built on smoke. When the benefits dry up, so do the allies. Tiffany didn't just lose a job, she lost her safety net. She's out of the mayor's seat, out of chances, and out of time. Dolton's story is a warning to every community, every voter, and every leader. When your people trust you with their vote, that's not a trophy. It's not a crown. It's a responsibility. It's your chance to lift, not stunt. To build, not just brag. Dolton woke up. They stopped accepting excuses. They raised the bar. And in doing so, they set an example. Because if we don't demand better, we'll keep watching the same movie. Leaders rising fast. Falling faster, while communities get left behind. Let Dolton be the reminder. Titles fade. Power collapses. But real leadership? It outlives the spotlight. It builds trust. It creates legacies worth remembering. Tiffany Henyard chose clout. Jason House chose community. And history will remember the difference. Community. And history will remember the difference.